Welcome to the Seano Show. I'm your host, Seano McFarland. My guest today, Steven Pressfield, is a renowned best-selling author who is largely known for his gripping historical novels and profound nonfiction works. One of my favorites of all time, and probably his most well-known novel, The War of Art, dives into overcoming creative blocks and has inspired countless artists and entrepreneurs. Notably, his novel, The Legend of Bagger Vance, was adapted to a major motion picture starring Will Smith and Matt Damon. How did you not quit?
There were many times when I did try to sort of sell out or try to go straight, get a regular job, be a regular person. But I was always so depressed at the end of the day that the only thing that kind of made anything work for me was to sit down and try to write.
You had so many bad things happen to you. You had so many different things, but you didn't make that your story. You figured a way out because some part of you believed that I can fucking do this and nothing was going to stop you.
To face the page is a very fearful thing to me. And I think it is for everybody. And in fact, I think that's why people don't do it. Why is it only 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000 that can actually do it? Not just writing, but any form of art. It's because it's too scary. Am I going to fail? Is this going to be a disaster? Am I going to embarrass myself? In fact, I would say that as an artist, if you are not afraid, something's wrong.
Welcome, Steven.
It's great to be here, Seano.
Oh, man.
We've been talking about this for a long time.
You're one of the most kind, gracious, humble cats I've ever met, but you're also fucking fierce and maybe a little mad. I don't know.
Thank you.
And I want to tell, you may or may not remember this, kind of how we initially met. This is when the champ was living here at Shell. And we would train at Gold's Venice.
Yeah.
And we share the same trainer, T.R. Goodman at Pro Camp, right? And Mike and I were training and TR introduced us and you brought one of your books over. I did not know who you were. Do you remember this?
I don't remember this. I remember Mike and you, but I don't remember bringing a book. You brought one of your books over and, a lot of people bring stuff to Mike and I thought, oh, let's go. Okay, and I look at the book and I go, some wacky sci-fi shit. I don't know what this is all about. And I come back here and I look at it and I'm going, oh, fuck. It's Steven Pressfield. I did not know that this is The War of Art. And I just want to say this. I hold that book up and that's the Bible for a lot of people. And to me, that's right up there with Rilke's Letters to a Young Poet.
Wow. And Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning.
Wow.
And it helps a lot of people. I want you on the show because your techniques are powerful, they're effective, and they're hard-earned. I want to give a little bit of your backstory because you were not an overnight success.
That's for sure.
You had such a madcap life.
I'll give just a little brief thing here. I mean, I was like, I think 52 or 53 years old before I got my first book published. And after trying basically through that whole era from age 22 to 52 or 53, whatever it was, and, had a million jobs along the way, was a screenwriter, like a bad screenwriter for about 10 years in that period. I drove trucks, I worked in the oil fields, I did all kinds of things like that. In a way, it was really good for me that it took me that long to get any kind of success, because I had to ask myself along the way, why am I doing this? Because there was no money in it. There was no recognition in it. And at some point I just had to say, I'm just in it because for the work itself, just for the fun of doing it itself. These days, there's a lot of pressure on young people, as you know, to succeed right out of the box. Mm-hmm. And my story was the opposite end of that. It took me like 30 years or something like that before I finally kind of broke through.
30 years, right? A long time.
Yeah.
How did you not quit? How did you not say, fuck it, I'm going to just figure something out here?
I tried to sell out, but the universe kind of wouldn't let me. So I just sort of knew the only way I was ever going to kind of come out of the long tunnel of trying and trying and trying was to sort of write my way out of it. And that was sort of, or became like my salvation, just to sit down for a couple of hours and try to, get something on a page.
Talk to me about the universe wouldn't let you out and how you kind of conspired with the universe and, kind of made it your thing. That technique. When did you master that?
I'm not sure it was even a technique. It was just sort of the concept that there was really no plan B that would work for me. There was no kind of fallback position. It wasn't like I had any idea in my mind about that. It was just when I did it or tried to do it, it just didn't work. At the end of the day, I was crazy. I was like waiting, wanting to go out and, get drunk or whatever. So I just had to kind of keep plugging at what I was trying to do. It's like somebody that's born to dance or born to sing or born to make films or something like that. You can try other paths, but it's not going to work. Somebody that's a born dancer just has to move, right? They have to kind of do that. And, for me, sitting in a keyboard and hammering away at something, that was what would work for me, make me sane.
So I'm sure you're right. You're sitting down. No one knows you have no success. Money's tight, right?
Uh-huh. Yes.
You have voices that are inside screaming at you like, what the fuck are you doing, Steve? Who is going to read this? Why are you even doing this? They were constant, right? And how did you overcome that? The voices, because the voices are so important to talk about here.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's the way it is, right? And, your family thinks you're crazy. I was estranged from my family through most of this thing. And, friends kind of like felt sorry for me. It's like, well, poor Steve, what's going to happen to him? The guy's deluded, he's going off a cliff, et cetera, et cetera. Along the way, the work itself gives you sustenance, right? You get something out of it, even though it hasn't achieved any success in the wider world. Maybe 10 years or so before I actually got a book published, I sort of started to have kind of a half-assed career as a screenwriter here. We're here in LA as we're having this interview. And so you start to get a little bit of success, maybe not where you want it to be, but you also know that you're learning. As you're going along, you're getting better. What you were doing 3 years ago, you will piss on it now, and what you're going to do 3 years from now is going to be better than that. So that gives you, some sustenance and courage and hope. It's not like you're just endlessly throwing, empty pages into a void. You're getting a little better. People start to know what your name is. You're not where you want to be. You're not doing what you really want to do, but you're getting better. You're learning.
And would you write every day? Did you commit to like every day I'm going to do at least 2 hours?
Yes. Or more, absolutely. Because if I didn't do it, I would be in that state of craziness that so well, Sean, and that so many people that you work with know. I would be in that state if I didn't, sit down and do my work.
Right. One of the things I try to teach people, and I'm sure you're a great example of this, be an expert at something for 10 minutes. If all you can do is work out for 10 minutes, great. If all you can do is do something for 10 minutes, all you can do is eat good, do something for 10 minutes. And you really mastered that. Persistence. That's your, right? Let's talk about persistence.
Yeah.
And daily commitment.
Yeah.
You never take a day off.
Every now and then, but it's pretty rare because I don't feel good if I take a day off, Right. And again, that voice kind of in your head says, oh, are you crazy to be working like this? But I don't think you are. I think that's what it takes. Like AA, right? It's one day at a time. There is no way to take. You say, well, today I'm going to get drunk, but then I'll go back to it the next day. It doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't. I know you've had some great mentors in your life. And I want to talk about the importance of finding a mentor. The program, find a good sponsor, find good teachers. Can you talk about some of your mentors and what you've learned and how you're mentoring people?
I've thought about this a lot because I wrote a book a couple of books ago that was sort of a memoir. So I had to sort of mentally kind of go back through my past, and a bunch of the mentors that I had were not writing mentors, they were in another field. Like when I was driving trucks, I had a boss named Hugh Reeves, who was the dispatcher at this place in North Carolina that I worked for about a year. And there were many moments with him, and certainly key moments with him, where he would kind of, I won't say chew me out, but really sort of tell me what was what, And there was one moment where I fucked up big time. I dropped a trailer. I don't know if it's a long story, but it was like $300,000 worth of equipment that, was my fault, And he took me out for a hot dog, and he said he was an old-time Marine with a buzz cut, one of those guys. And he said to me, he says, I can tell by looking at you and from what we talk that you're going through some sort of drama. He says, I can see you're working out some shit in your life. And he said, I don't know what it is, and I don't want to know what it is. But when you were working for me, you're a professional driver, and your job is to deliver a fucking load. And I don't care what you have to do. Don't phone me. Don't panic out, deliver that load. And, I'm just saying yes or yes, but that's the kind of a mentor thing that really sinks in on you. And later when you're alone trying to finish a book and you're 18 months into it and you're falling apart, something like that pulls you through, You say to yourself, I've got to deliver this fucking load, whatever it is. So I've had a lot of mentors like that.
I want to jump in on that because you said something very impactful to me. I've always got a sense there's a sense of goodness and rightness in you. Some people would take that criticism from your boss and say, fuck you, I'm out of here. But you took it. And I think it's important for, to find teachers who are going to love you, but also say, you're out of line.
Yeah.
Well, you tell me about that. You took that information in the right way because you knew he was right. You knew you screwed up and you understand, I guess, fair and balanced. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, he was absolutely right. And somebody needed to say that to me. And I was really grateful to him, because he really gave me something that I could hang on to in that moment. So I'm really grateful for that. But a lot of mentors that I've had, I might not even have known them, or they might not have known me. I kind of watched them from afar, a boss or somebody that worked in the movie business. You would watch how somebody attacks a problem, how they handle adversity. And even though you're not like asking them, how do you do this? You're watching and you're learning, just from their body language or how they do something. And I know that you're a mentor to a lot of people, and people watch you, How does he get up in the morning? What is when he trains at the gym? How does he train? Like Mike O'Hearn at the gym. I don't really hang out with Mike or talk to him very much, but you just watch him across the gym and watch how he gets ready to do a set of squats with some really heavy weight, or just how he does anything at all. And you can learn from him. And so there've been a lot of mentors for me like that. And I certainly think that's a big part of anybody's evolution, to find somebody you admire, to watch them, to see how they handle something.
You write a lot about stoicism, honor and duty. Why is that so attractive to you?
That's a great question. I'm definitely a believer as a writer that you don't know what you're trying to say. You don't write to express yourself. You write to discover yourself, So when that theme came up, and it does come up in a bunch of my books, I sort of asked myself, and I don't even have an answer, why is this coming up? Why am I drawn to this kind of subject? It's not like I'm planning it, but for whatever reason, I really am a believer in honor and duty and things like that. I'm not even sure why. I just believe it's absolutely important.
Do you remember the point, Steven, in your life where you realized, were you just as a writer, as a human being, I'm my own cat. Not everyone's going to love my books. But I'm at peace with myself and what I do here.
Well, yeah, there definitely was a moment for that. Which is interesting. When I was a screenwriter, and I did that for about 10 years. And I think I wrote maybe 30, 35 scripts or something like that. Each one taken, a long time, 6 months or something like that.
Wow.
Only a few of them got made. Most of them just sat on, just was in a shelf in my closet. And some of them were good. And some of them were, were worthy of something, but they never really felt like they were coming from my heart until the first book that I wrote that got published was The Legend of Bagger Vance that became a movie, although the book is a lot better than the movie. But that was the first time that book sort of came out of me really fast. And it was coming from some place that I'd never written from before. In writing movie scripts, I would sort of do, well, let's do a detective story, or I want to do a film noir, or I want to do a science fiction thing. And I would sort of, come up with an idea and then kind of craft it and make it work, as best I could. But this, Bagger Vance kind of came out of another place. And everything I've done since then, which is like 23 books now, has also come from that place. So that was the moment when, and I don't even know why, it's a mystery. I can't explain it. Somehow I started writing from a different, better, truer place where I could really say, like, of things that I've done, nobody else could do that. This is coming out of me and me alone. Just like I would say of other writers or other filmmakers or something, it's coming, they're the only ones that could have done that, Martin Scorsese's movies, whatever, But these, I would say, of the movies that I did before that, I'd say anybody could have done them. But the books that I've done since then, only I could have done them. Wow. Done them the way that they were done. And again, I don't know why.
And so there was a tremendous confidence, and you were just like, I am who I am, and this is,
Yeah.
I think you'll appreciate this. I think one of the biggest days in my life was when I realized there are better therapists, better coaches, better heads of hair, bigger cocks, whatever. I'm not competing anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just my own cat.
I feel exactly the same way.
I'm just in, as Mr. Shakespeare said, there's nothing good or bad, only thinking that makes it so.
Yeah.
And I made peace with who I am, and I live by that rule every day.
And we can only be who we are, right? That's sort of what we're trying to do all of our life, is be who we really are.
Well,
and once we are that, there are going to be people better.
Yeah.
But all we can be is who we are.
People always want to be somebody else. They're not right with themselves. And let's just talk a little bit more about, how do you become your authentic self?
There's a great question, because and it's sort of interesting. I say the book that turned that corner for me was The Legend of Bagger Vance. And the theme of The Legend of Bagger Vance is the authentic swing, the golf swing, where the character, Ranulph Jr., is a guy who's lost his swing and is trying to find his authentic swing, the swing he was born to swing, which is a metaphor for the authentic self. So I was thinking that on a subconscious level, even though I didn't know it until it actually appeared on the page. So I'm a believer in the muse. I'm a believer in the mysterious force, the goddess or whatever it is that inspires artists, right? And that we don't know what we're really doing. It's coming from her. And our job is to sort of be a clear channel that will let that come through. So it's like when you become your authentic artist, let's say, doing your, enacting your authentic gift, you're really sort of stepping out of your own way, getting the ego out of the way and allowing whatever idea is coming from some other source to speak through you. So people will say, well, how do you find your voice as a writer? And I find that each book is different and each book requires a different voice. Like in The Legend of Bagger Vance, the story is told from a 10-year-old boy's point of view as a 70-year-old doctor remembering when he was 10 years old. The same sort of narrative device that was used in To Kill a Mockingbird. But then in the next book that I wrote after that, Gates of Fire, which was a story of the 300 Spartans at Thermopylae, that was told in a completely different voice. So which is authentic? Neither one is authentic. It's authentic to the work, to the material itself, as a gift to the reader. The voice has to be what's going to make that particular project work.
Wow. I love that. Let's talk about shadow careers.
Okay.
Shadow careers.
Shadow careers. In Hollywood, as you know, there is an occupation called an entertainment lawyer. And entertainment lawyers specialize, they're the guys that draw up the contracts for directors and actors and writers and so on and so forth, right? What's interesting is a lot of these guys and gals who are entertainment lawyers secretly would love to be directors or producers or writers themselves. Mm-hmm. And what they've sort of done, whether they realize it or not, probably the mental unconscious process was, I'd love to be I'd love to be Brad Pitt. I'd love to be Steven Spielberg, but that's so risky. Why don't I go to law school and I'll get a career And so you find a career that's sort of adjacent to the career you would really love to do. And another parallel to this is you'll find people who would love to be creators one way or another. And so they take a job as an assistant, like to Aaron Sorkin or somebody like that, right? Because they're trying to build up their own courage to be a creator themselves. So that's kind of a shadow career. And a lot of times, talking about entertainment lawyers, a lot of them will sit down and try to write or do something at some point, and almost invariably they're really good, and it's sort of like, damn, why didn't I do that, out of the box? In fact, let me ask you something, because I want to talk about addiction for a second.
Sure, of course.
And again, I'm sort of speaking only theoretically. You're the guy that really knows, that's really worked with people. I have a theory that addiction is a kind of a shadow career. I think the addicts that I've known, the people that have been, are almost always really gifted people, really interesting people. It's not they're dull people at all. They're really people that have a lot going on inside them. And I think sometimes, tell me if I'm wrong, this is just my theory, that someone that would love to be, say, a movie director or something like that, but for whatever reason can't kind of find the courage or the discipline or whatever to do it, the addiction becomes a kind of a shadow version of that career. And it's full of drama. It's full of excitement. It's how am I going to get my next, hit or whatever it is, or the emotional drama that comes up. You're breaking up with whoever, your significant other, you're finding somebody else, that kind of thing. The addict is sort of creating a shadow drama instead of the artistic drama that they really would love to do. And so that's just my theory. I may be wrong, but does that make any sense to you, Sean?
Let me see if I can translate that into Seano speak.
Yeah.
I think what happens, Steven, is people have ideas and thoughts how they want to live their life. And they want to do different challenges or different things. And I think with a lot of addicts, their head's a little bit louder and the voices it's a little scarier. And so instead of just writing for 2 hours a day and showing up, they'll go to a substance, they'll go to a drink, they'll go to a girl, they'll go to the gambling parlor and deal with their fear and insecurities there and never get in front of it and just go, I'm fucking scared. I need help. I want to be a writer. This is what I'm going to do. No matter what, I'm going to commit to Steven Pressfield. I'm going to write for 9 minutes a day today. I'm going to stick to that and not get fucking high today. I think there is a marriage between the two. I think and then they get caught up in the drama and then years go by and then they can blame, well, the thing is my wife, she didn't do this and they did this. I got in the wrong law school. I should have been in NYU. And it becomes that dance.
Yeah. Well, let me throw another thing at you. Tell me if this is true. I think that any kind of addiction is about instant gratification, right? As soon as the needle hits the arm, everything is okay, right? Whereas a career in any kind of creative field or entrepreneurial field is really about delayed gratification. Like if you're learning, say you want to be a concert pianist, you sit down, shit, man, I've got like 20 years before I dare get on the stage. To do, because I've got to learn, right? I've got to do all the finger exercises and scales and stuff like that. So the one is about instant gratification and the other is about delayed gratification. Now, how you can save yourself in there, that's another issue. But I think that the delayed gratification route is the one that kind of pays off in the end.
Yeah, well, you're right there, because here's the thing. Most addicts don't have a sense of self. They don't,
and most artists don't either.
They don't believe in themselves. They don't have that, and the world's a little extra loud and scary for them. And why I have you on the show is because we're about challenging those voices. You're big. I mean, you're just like, fuck this. We're going to do this. There's a way to do this, and a lot of people don't choose that path, and it's a sad path, and it's a troubling path, and a lot of people get sucked up in that tornado. What I do is I say, okay, I hear the fears. I hear what happened. I hear what mom, dad, I hear what dad to you. I hear the sad story. Do you want to write a new chapter? Because my whole thing is about, let's write new chapters.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you had so many bad things happen to you. You had so many different things, but you didn't make that your story. You figured a way out because some part of you believed that I can fucking do this and nothing was going to stop you. I think you have to have the attitude is nothing's going to stop you. And I think you have to have a mentor that goes, yeah, you're right. Nothing's going to stop you, Steven. You got moves. You can fucking do this. I think we all need a cheerleader though.
Mm.
Do you agree?
I do.
Okay.
And on the subject of mentors, for me, a lot of times dreams have been my mentors. Dreams, that you have at night when you're asleep, that in moments when I was really lost or faltering or whatever, not on a path, but about to fall off, I've had dreams throughout my life that would pull me back onto the path or encourage me or do something and act as a mentor, almost like Obi-Wan Kenobi came, in holographic form. And, once you analyze the dream and say, what is it trying to tell me? Those have been great mentors for me. And I've seen it in other people too.
Okay. I got to talk to you about this because I don't know this about you, but, addiction, I believe is a spiritual malady. And I've worked with some of the best, brightest people in the world that can't get sober or abstinent because you can't do with the brain what must be done with the spirit. I believe that. Okay. They got to tap into something higher than themselves to relieve them of their addiction and then start the process. You seem tapped into something. What is your faith? How are you, the muse, the dreams, connection, the universe, what is your faith?
Well, you realize when you're any kind of artist, but particularly when you're a writer who has to face the blank page, you have to ask yourself at some point, where do ideas come from? And I've heard this of songwriters, like there's a famous story that Elizabeth Gilbert talks about Tom Waits. He's driving along the freeway and a song just comes to him, the whole song right in his head like that. And he's got to screech off to the side of the freeway and, write it down as fast as he possibly can. But the question that you ask over and over again is, where do these ideas come from? They're not coming from me. Like the idea of the legend of Bagger Vance just sort of, it seized me, came from nowhere. And so you have to have a little bit of a belief in something other than yourself at that point, right? And that makes you, first of all, it makes you humble because you say to yourself, no matter what I do that I can show to somebody who wrote this or whatever it is, you can't really say, oh, I did that, I was a vehicle for it, I was a channel for it, but it was coming from somewhere else. And the other thing that it makes you do is you ask yourself, well, how can I get to that place again? It happened this time, but is it ever going to happen again? And as you go along, and this happens kind of again and again and again, when you do get ideas come in, you really develop a faith in it. That's my religion. If there's anything, if I do have a religion, I certainly believe there's a higher level of reality. We're on one level. There's another level above us. Ideas come from this level. Books that you write, songs you write, it comes from this level. And our job is to get from this level to that level. And in between is that negative force that I call resistance with a capital R in the war of art. Another aspect of that is learning, is believing in that higher level. Because everything else tells you, oh, that's bullshit. It's coming, you're making it up. It's not really happening like that. But the more you believe, the more good things happen. So now you have to sort of cultivate that element too of believing in this thing, really having faith in it. So when you were saying that addicts in your experience don't really have a strong sense of self, I think artists are the same way. And in a way, it's a good thing. Because if you don't have a big ego, then that channel to the higher dimension is easier to open. And I think like actors doing improv, that's really sort of the world they live in, where from second to second on stage, maybe with a partner, right? You're making up a little skit. You don't know what's going to come out of your mouth. You certainly don't know what's going to come out of your partner's mouth. And you just have to get into that state of trust, of openness, right? That something's going to come out of your mouth. Mm-hmm. One of the things they say in improv, which I think is a lot like writing, is that the answer is always yes, right? When somebody, like if you're my partner and we're doing an improv and you say something to me, the worst thing I can do is to contradict that. I got to go with it, right? If you say to me something that makes me a monkey, I got to, do that, go with it. So, and I think that element, that's the same thing as faith. In a way, it's a belief in something that you can't define, that you can't command, and that is your real essence.
Mm-hmm. And you don't doubt that the next idea for your book is going to come in. It'll come in whenever the pacing is right, correct?
I do. I don't doubt that. Another trolley is coming down the track,
Yeah.
And it'll be the right trolley.
I love that. I really believe this, Steven. My life is none of my business, and all my problems are a question of faith. It drops in on me, but I show up for it. I'm prepared for it. Like I called in this show. Yeah. The show, as you know, has been in the years in making. I called in you, the consciousness. Yeah. Our format today, I've been working on it for the last days. It just kind of comes together. Now, going to your thing about addiction blocks that from coming in. It blocks the light. It blocks the muse. You can't have that because you're battling. And that's where they get it wrong, because you can't have the clarity. You can't have the faith. You can't have the patience and the understanding that's going to come in when you're battling addiction and you're actively, it just won't happen. I want to talk about this quote, okay, from The Virtues of War. A cavalryman's horse should be smarter than he is, but the horse must never be allowed to know this. What? Tell me about this. That really hit me, man.
My interpretation of it is that we're all, like I was talking about the muse and the goddess and whatever, right? The flow of creativity that comes into you. That's the horse that we're riding. And we're never going to control that horse. The horse is smarter than we are, but we have to sort of ride it and make it work in this dimension. It's coming into us in a kind of a wild form, and we have to sort of keep it on the track, so it goes around the track and comes to the finish line. But who knows what I loved about that quote? I stole it from a book, and I can tell you the book. It was the Memoirs of Baron de Marbeau, of like an old time Napoleonic, true story, real Napoleonic hussar, a cavalryman. And either I stole it completely or I tweaked it a little. I can't remember, but it comes, that's the source.
How do you think, knowing addiction, you know a lot of addicts, how do you think this would be applicable?
How do you think it would be applicable?
Okay. Addiction, you have to know when you're out of your league. For instance, I work with a lot of gang members. I think it was Christian Murray that said, is it true, is it kind, is it necessary? Do you really need to go back and hang out with the old people? Why are you going back there? You have to have respect for the beast. You have to have respect for the disease. You have to kind of know what you're working with. And so I think there's truth to that.
This horse is wilder than you think it is.
Yes.
And you can't control this motherfucker, You have
a gambling addiction. Do you think you need to go to Vegas for the fight? Do you think it's a smart idea? Do you think you're mature and wise enough to go walk through the casino and not get challenged?
Yeah.
There's a real humility in that. And there's a real art with knowing when you're dealing with these kinds of things. And it's once because I believe, and I'd like to I want to hear about this. I have, I know I see you at the gym religiously every morning. What time do you get there?
I get there when it opens, at a little bit before 5.
And why do you get there so early?
Just sort of evolved. I always went early, mainly for traffic. If I would come in later, traffic would be murder. But now it's part of my life, just to get up early and do it.
And do you have any kind of preparation to do before or after that, where you kind of get centered for the day, where you think about your writings, or what is your routine?
Well, I do a little bit of just for the gym. When I get out of bed in the morning, my back is always tweaked and twisted. And so I have to kind of warm up a little bit at home before I get to the gym. And also, TR trains us to sort of mentally be ready. We have to have our mind in the right place for whatever we're going to do that day. So that's part of that. And the whole process for me of going to the gym is preparation for writing, preparation for sitting down and hitting the blank page or whatever it is. Because, the gym is something for me that I don't want to do. It's something that I'm afraid of, and it's something that hurts. And so I'm kind of rehearsing because that's what I'm going to be doing later on in the day. And so if I do it the one time at the gym, then it establishes a momentum for me when I finally get home and I actually sit down and go to work.
Why are you afraid of the gym? You sure don't look like when I see you there.
I mean, when you're anything, squatting even not that I squat very much weight, but, you go down to the bottom, you say, am I really going to be able to get back up again? When I get that weight up over my head, is it going to come down on top of me? Or am I going to bonk halfway through, on the fourth set of something? Am I going to just fall apart? Fear is a big element for me in the gym.
Mm-hmm. But you've used fear as a motivator.
I try to.
Right.
First of all, I think, at least in writing for me, I'm always afraid of it every day. To face the page is a very fearful thing to me. And I think it is for everybody. And in fact, I think that's why people don't do it. Why is it only 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000 that can actually do it? Not just writing, but any form of art. It's because it's too scary. Am I going to fail? Am I going to fuck up? Is this going to be a disaster? Am I going to embarrass myself? In fact, I would say that as an artist, if you are not afraid, something's wrong. You should be afraid. In fact, you should be scared shitless. The more afraid you are, the more certain you can be that you're onto something good. And this is kind of the theory of resistance with a capital R, that negative force that's going to try to stop you from being your true self and from doing your best work, that negative force, what it uses against you is fear. It scares you, So when it's really scary is the best time, because the bigger the resistance, in my opinion, the bigger the idea that you're trying to do. If you think of a tree, imagine a tree in the middle of a sunny meadow. As soon as that tree appears, there's going to be a shadow, right? The shadow is the tree is the dream. You to form this facility that you formed here, to the podcast, whatever it is, a dream that you have, that's the tree. Or for me, it's a book I want to write or whatever. And the shadow is resistance, is the resistance, the fear that we're going to feel to enacting that, right? For you to make this podcast happen, for you to make this place happen, for you to live the life that you've lived, right? It's scary, right?
Every day.
So it's really scary. So the point that I try to tell myself all the time is there wouldn't be a shadow if there wasn't a tree. The fact that there wouldn't be that fear if there wasn't a dream that was creating the fear, right? So if we're experiencing big resistance to any project that we want to do, big fear, like, oh, fuck, what am I doing this? This is never going to work. I can't do it, da-da-da-da. That's a good sign because it shows that the dream is a really big dream and that the dream is really important. So that was why I was saying, if you're sitting down at a new artistic project or entrepreneurial project and you're not scared to death,
right,
something's wrong.
Something's way off here.
Something's wrong.
Nothing's come easy for me. It's not like
I know.
I just, that's okay. Literally an hour before our first episode here, a voice told me, fucking cancel. You can't do this. Of course.
I'm laughing because it's so true.
You understand that, right?
Yeah.
The reason why I think I've been able to stay sober 37 years and help all the people and do this and create Shell is because I learned the master art of showing up no matter what. And I came up with a saying and it's really true. I'm the biggest scaredy cat in the room, but I am a triple black belt in showing up.
But I think you're absolutely right. If there's any sort of key, one thing that would turn the corner for somebody, that's it. It's just like how you feel doesn't mean shit, right? I don't feel like getting out of bed. I don't feel like working. I don't feel like going to the gym. I'm not in the mood. It's really not my day. Bullshit, right? Show up is the key. because as soon as you show up, everything is fine.
Everything is fine. Okay, let me ask you this.
And good for you for showing up. Yeah, and I could have told you, if you had asked me, what's going to happen to me an hour before I start my first podcast? I say you're going to be pissing in your pants and you're going to want to quit, because everybody would feel that exact same thing.
When are you your happiest?
When I'm working, really, or when I've just finished working. Gloria Steinem famously said, what was it? She says, I don't like to write. I like to have written. Oof. Well, it's sort of like the gym, right? I don't necessarily like the gym, but I like when I'm done at the gym. But also, I would say I'm happiest when I'm in the flow of something, when I feel like I'm doing what I should be doing. I'm facing my fear. I'm showing up, and I'm doing the best I can, even though it's imperfect. And I know it's imperfect, but then I can sleep at night, And you were asking me before, how did I keep going through all that time?
Yes.
Because when I would sit down and do a couple of hours of writing, even if it was dog shit, and it wasn't going anywhere, I felt calm. I felt like I'd earned my place on the planet.
Oh, I love that.
For that day, which I think is true even of animals. I mean, if you watch the hawks that circle around, the day comes, they're hungry. Foxes, what you got to eat. You got to get up there and fly around and look for a little squirrel, and you got to do it every day. And to earn just to survive, and I think we're the same way. We humans, above and beyond hunting for food, we have to also enact our gift, whatever it is, but be true to our gift, to try, even though we're going to fail every day, but to try. And when you can say, okay, I gave it my best shot today, I can go to sleep tonight. I'm okay.
Have you had great betrayals in your life?
Not really. No, I don't think so.
Because I would imagine in your business, different people that you've had, anything, that somebody, might have been a turncoat. Somebody did you real harm, or somebody didn't honor a commitment, or somebody that you were very close to decided not to honor that tradition of honor.
I'm certainly a believer in never holding a grudge and never, being a hater or anything like that. And when I think about, I'm thinking of a couple of instances that you might call that a betrayal, not really a betrayal, but if I put myself in the mind of the person that, I had a clash with, I can understand their position, that, if I were there, I might feel the same way. People have misunderstandings. People look at things from different sides, but no, I don't feel like I've ever really been
That's really fascinating
betrayed.
To me. So you move off it. You don't like to stay. You don't stay in it.
I don't really. Yeah, it's bad news. Yeah, it's bad karma. Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad news because in recovery, they say resentment's the number one offender.
Yeah. And I would say somebody that takes a betrayal really hard and lets it knock them off their game, or lets them go back to drinking or whatever it is, what it really is their own resistance with a capital R. And they're just using the betrayal as an excuse. They're really afraid to go back to sobriety or to back whatever it is, because that's so scary. So they'll use this as an excuse, a betrayal as an excuse. That's my theory.
I like that. I like that a lot. Let's talk about love. You found love later in life.
Yeah, I found it a little bit of it along the way too.
What does love mean to you?
Okay, might be a dark answer, but I have found that for me, love is really not what makes me feel okay. So I don't have kids, so that would be a whole different thing. The love of a family, that type of thing. But for me, it's kind of the work that makes me feel whole. If it's only love and I don't have the work, I'm fucked.
Right.
And I think about somebody like Kobe Bryant. If he had his family, but he didn't have basketball, or he didn't have whatever, would he be happy? I don't think so.
No.
Maybe that's a man thing, a male thing, because we had to go out in the cavemen, and bring home the mastodon meat. Maybe we have this thing that we sort of need to have a trade or something that we contribute to the family. But I don't think it's enough for a man, other than being a provider, bringing home the bacon.
Got it.
So I was thinking about, what we were going to talk about today.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you, because I don't know about this. Again, this is an addiction thing. it would seem to me that if somebody could kick a habit, whatever it was, drugs, alcohol, or whatever, that according to the theory of resistance, that they would need to replace that if they were going to make it stick. They would really need to find their voice, their calling, their gift, whatever it is, and embrace that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I sort of feel like writing for me is what keeps me from drinking. Not that I'm a drinker, but it's what keeps me from going down that dark path.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just was wondering if that rings true at all for you in your long experience. You've got this facility.
Yes.
You've got everything that you've done to help people, right?
Yes.
That's kind of, is that a replacement for?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
It's a healthy thing
Yeah.
instead of a shadow thing.
Because I had, just like you, I was vicious to myself.
Uh-huh.
You know, because of things that happened to me. I was in my story, and I was, even as you get physically sober, that's great. But you sober up a horse thief, you still have a horse thief.
Mm-hmm.
It's about emotional sobriety. It's about emotional security. But I also had a dream and I had a vision. I couldn't fucking quit on myself. I had to do it. I could at least do shell, and if it didn't work, I could at least say, you know what, I did everything possible.
Yeah.
Didn't work. But yes, you have to replace it with things, and you have to learn how to dream, and you have to lead to push yourself. It's like, that's why you see a lot of recovery guys train hard. We got to get our dopamine going. We got to get our serotonin going.
Yeah.
Okay, we train. You know, when a beloved brother, Robin Williams, the great comic, was a fucking stone cold alkie. Okay, bad. And what really turned his sobriety around was running.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
You know, and you would see him running through Central Park when, it's in San Francisco, he'd run in that. You have to find something to replace it. But the voices, you got to start being around people that understand the voices, that understand the fear. Just like I'm sure you've gotten help from other writers. You got to be around other people that are involved in the struggle. You got to have your community.
Yeah.
You got to fucking not be afraid to fucking fail. Fail. Just fail.
You talk about Robin Williams, that his comedy and his acting was not what filled the gap for him. It's interesting. You say it had to be running.
I'm about whatever works.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think you can just have a horrible addiction and just kind of show up and go to a meeting and do that, it's probably not going to work. Or you might be I always work with people. Do you want to be the get by guy? You have the fucking job and you do that and you're sober. The get by guy, no, we're here to live out loud. We're here to break free.
Uh-huh.
I didn't get sober to be a low frequency human being.
Uh-huh.
I had very specific people.
Phrase. That's great.
No, it's low frequency.
Uh-huh.
I had very specific people that told me I can't do this. I'm a bit of a fighter. No, fuck you. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're misunderstood. You don't understand the strength and the power of Seano McFarland. And I'm going to show you.
Tell me about a high frequency person and a low frequency.
You're a high frequency person. A high frequency person is a person who doesn't get caught up in resentments. A high frequency person is someone who lives in gratitude, who knows he's right because he loves it and he has a gift. And most people hate their lives. A high frequency person is somebody who has someone like Diane in their life. A high frequency person is a person who takes risk, who's constantly in community, constantly in service. And a high frequency person is a person who has had deep, strong adversity, but always finds a way.
Can you go from being a low frequency person to a high frequency person?
Didn't you?
I believe that's true, of other people. And
absolutely you can.
Huh. Now, do you believe literally when you say high frequency, low frequency, that, that we are vibration or anything like that?
We're energy. We're energy.
Uh-huh.
We're energy. You have great, bright energy. My crew here is bright energy. They get here early. They're grateful for the job. They're grateful to be a part of this podcast. That's high frequency to me. The guy that's selling dope over here is low frequency.
Uh-huh.
He's earning his living, but I also understand I have compassion for him.
Uh-huh. So how do you go from being a low frequency person to a high frequency person?
Great question. My phone rings off the hook. Questions. How does somebody change? And I always give them the same. You have to be sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Uh-huh. So it's a decision.
You make a decision.
An act of the will, in other words.
It's an act of the will.
Uh-huh.
You got to make a decision. That's right. That I don't want to live like this anymore. And I'm terrified and I don't want to do it. And I'm going to figure a way out.
A lot of times it takes a moment of hitting bottom,
mm-hmm.
right? when your self-respect finally kicks in and you say to yourself, I can't live this fucking way one more day or one more minute, right?
Right.
And you do make a decision to say, I'm going to change. I'm going to make myself, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to make myself change. And I guess that's from low frequency to high frequency over a period of time.
That's right.
In your definition. Yeah.
Yes, that's my opinion of that.
What do you think it is about the human being that needs, that gets pulled into these addictions and stuff like that? What is that? Are we cursed from, God or something?
Okay.
Why is that dark side?
Okay. So prevalent? Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. I'm going to answer your question. Did you have kind parents? Did you have good parents?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
They were good people.
Yeah.
They taught you values.
Yeah.
They didn't talk bad down to you. There was no trauma. They didn't put their hands on you.
True. They did not. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's a real blessing. It's probably where you still have your great goodness from. A lot of people don't have that. A lot of parents.
So you think it's about upbringing, huh?
I think a lot of it, the nature versus nurture. I mean, some people just have the gene, but I think a lot of it is honestly bad parenting. If you get, you're not good, you're this, the dad's watching them scream at the mom and all these different things. I just think it's a different environment. Not that it's an excuse. I don't think a lot of people came. Now, for instance, my own son, because one of the things that I think you may or may not know that's so important to me is ending generational trauma. Okay. From the moment I held my son's little hand when he was 3 hours, I said, you can do whatever you want in the world, son. He's had none of that funk. He's had none of that jive. And not just because he's my boy, he's 20 years old. He's got greatness. He doesn't, but it also is, I always knew where he was at in life. I always paid attention to him. A lot of people don't pay attention. And so maybe early on, even if there's not a lot of dysfunction and a kid's a little wacky or goofy, the parents aren't on top of it and deal with it in real time. And they get placed in the wrong people. And it takes a long time to come back and get the reprogramming. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Although it does seem to me that there certainly are people that come out of ideal family situations.
Of course. I'm not blaming it all. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And so why does that happen?
Yeah.
I think that they might have the gene. Okay. I don't know. You might be able to have a couple of drinks and everything is great. I'd maybe take 3 drinks and a buzzer goes off. And Seano's gone for 7 days. That's the difference.
I'm just thinking about there's in the verse in Genesis, before God sends the flood, where he says the human being is drawn, but is a turning toward evil. And I'm sorry that I made these motherfuckers, and I'm going to send a flood to wipe them out, And when you look at the human race, across the wars that are going on and all that sort of the shit that it constantly happens, right? Every generation, you wonder what we seem to be deeply flawed. We can be so cruel to each other, and so weak. I just was wondering from the point of view of addiction and from all the people you work with, what other than an upbringing, is there something that you chalk that up to? Why did God make us like this?
Oh boy, that's I don't know the answer to that, honestly.
I mean, I don't either.
I really don't. I can't say, well, the reason God, but I will just tell you this. I don't have the wisdom or even maybe the time, honestly, to think about that. All I know is there's darkness right around the corner. There's guys that are selling drugs literally on our way to Erewhon. You can buy a bag of meth.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All I'm going to do is be the best version of me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to raise my frequency, my light. And when I do that, I get to meet people like you in my life. When you come over and say good morning to me at the gym, I experience love. Because I feel seen by you, Steven. And that means the world to me. So a lot of people don't feel seen. And a lot of addicts, they don't feel seen.
Yeah, that's
and when
true.
You're a child, you might have fear and you don't feel, and you might go to donuts. You might go to pulling your dick and pornography. And some of you might just go to having a beer with the local guys. And that beer becomes 2 beers and that becomes whiskey. And that's like, what are you smoking? Give me some of that. What, you can put that in your arm? How does that feel? Oh, you can smoke the crack now? Let me try that. And then they're off to the races. And there was nobody there to give them kindness and love. And a lot of these gang guys that come to me, I think the reason why they feel safe here is they don't feel judged.
Yeah, that's
I meet them right where they're at, man.
Yeah.
Because I don't see them as a guy who killed somebody. I don't see them as a guy who's running the drugs in the city. I see them as a scared little boy.
Uh-huh. I mean, I know that's what Mike Tyson says about himself, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
the baddest dude on the planet. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. But Mike dropped his guard because I saw his little boy, and also he had trust, and he knew that I would never harm him.
Mm-hmm.
So my job is to do no more harm.
That's a great thing, Seano, and you are that way. You know,
I
God
appreciate
bless you.
that. But also, Steven, to your great techniques, okay? But I also, tell somebody the version of the guy when he says, you've got some crazy stuff going on. I don't care. But when you're here, you work for me. When you're at Shell, I need you to show the fuck up. I don't want to hear this anymore. I don't want to hear blah, 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 blah. Get out, put your bulletproof vest on, and go up and show up for your family. Go up and show up for your employer. Stop making it about you. What can you give back to the world instead of taking? Because you're fucking stealing all day long from the world. Alcoholism, drug addiction. It's always, I learned this early on at 22, and it's always stuck with me. It's the only disease that tells you don't have it.
Ah, that's great. Yeah.
You know, a guy could come in here, first time meeting with him, and he's bleeding from a bandage. And I just found out he's got his second DUI. He got fired from his job. He's living in a hotel down the street. Okay. He hobbled in here, and, you know, his life's a fucking mess. And the most kindly, politely way I can say, sir, have you ever considered yourself that you might be an alcoholic? And he goes, it's not that bad.
Yeah, I can stop anytime. No problem.
And that's the power of the disease.
Control of it, yeah.
So you have to get past that, and somebody has to get humble enough to go, I'm a fucking mess. I'm a fucking mess. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I need help. I need help. I need help, and I don't know are the most powerful things for somebody to say.
Yeah, because that's how you change. Yeah.
Okay, that's how
the
you
first
change.
step. Yeah.
What are the top 3 books that have changed your life?
Wow. When I was at my lowest and, you know, and really struggling, and I've always been a reader, and I would turn to books, you know, what can I read that would help me? And what I found was in that state of mind, a lot of the books that I used to like or that I thought were good, when I'd read them in that state of mind, they didn't work for me anymore. It was like I said, this is bullshit, you know, or this is not addressing, you know, what I need. I'm not getting the steak and potatoes that I need out of this. And there were like the books that worked for me at that. One was the Bible. One was the King James Bible.
Wow.
Not because it was anything religious, but just the great poetry of it, you know, and that old timey way it was, you know, like the bad translations, these modern translations, that wouldn't have worked on me at all. But the King James Version, that was one. Another was the Iliad, Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey, because they were, again, sort of like honor. It's they were written, you know, whatever it was, 3,000 years ago. And in an age of honor, in an age of, you know, that to me was more real than what we have today. You know, that it wasn't modern. It was, you know, really primal stuff. Those 3 books were the books that would, and Shakespeare, again, because that sort of exalted prose, you know, that wasn't, you know, modern vernacular or anything like that. Those were the things that gave me sustenance that I could read. And in fact, I would be brought to tears immediately. You know, I was so, what's the word, vulnerable, or, you know, I was like the nerve endings there was nothing on the nerve endings, right? They were totally exposed. And so when that great poetry.
Well, could you give like an example of something that cracked your heart that you read? Like, is there a verse that comes to you?
I'll tell you one. It's a story of Ruth and Naomi. Do you know that at all in the Bible?
I don't know. I'd love to hear it, Steven.
It's a younger woman whose Ruth was from Moab. She was not an Israelite. And Naomi, I think, if I'm maybe getting these right, was an Israelite and an older woman. And somehow they connected. And Ruth decided she was going to follow Naomi no matter what, right? That whatever her bad life was in the past, she was leaving it behind. And this is how it goes in the King James Bible, if I can get it right. And Ruth said to Naomi, "Entreat me not to leave thee or to refrain from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go. Where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people. See, I'm getting emotional as I'm saying it. And thy God, my God. Where you die, I will die. And there shall I be buried. The Lord do all this to me and more, if aught but death part thee and me. So I'm not even sure why that was so, it's emotional to me now, but that's the kind of a thing that, I mean, it's great poetry, you know, and what she's expressing, you know, is I'm going to follow you from now, you know, I just want to be with you. I put aside everything from my past, all the shit from my past, you know, thy people shall be my people and thy God, my God.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's one of the things.
I love that. I can see how that translates into your writings. It's very powerful. I'm asking our guest to read from his book and something that really hit me, and I want to talk to you about this.
Okay. This is from Gates of Fire, which is the story of the 300 Spartans and at Thermopylae who died defending to the last man, defending against the Persian invasion, 2 million men versus like 300 or 4,000 or whatever it was. And the story is told by this young boy, squire of one of the Spartans, and he's telling it to the king of Persia, to Xerxes, who wants to know who were these guys that stood up against us and died to the last man. And so this young boy says this to the great king of Persia. And he is defining what a king is. And he says, a king does not abide within his tent while his men bleed and die upon the field. A king does not dine while his men go hungry, nor sleep when they stand at watch upon the wall. A king does not command his men's loyalty through fear, nor purchase it with gold. He earns their love by the sweat of his own back and the pains he endures for their sake. That which comprises the harshest burden, a king lifts first and sets down last. A king does not provide service, or does not require service of those he leads, but provides it to them. A king does not expend his substance to enslave men, but by his conduct and example makes them free. Mm. Why did that strike you, Sean?
Because I think it's what represents Shell.
Shell being Shell. This place here that takes people in.
The House of Miracles, because you said earlier, forget what I say, watch my actions. And a true leader is a true leader. And it's just watch what we do here. Watch how I show up. Mm-hmm. Watch how do I conduct myself? How am I dealing with people? Am I treating you with respect and kindness? I thought it was so poetic. Yeah. You know, but I think a person's action is the most important thing. How a person demonstrates in their daily affairs is I think that's probably my best teacher. Let's talk about the book, your new thing that you gifted me with. I think you probably want to tell people, by the way, folks, this is really, Steven, talk about this and how you came about on this.
This is, I'd say to sort of give a pitch or anything, but this is the sort of special gift edition of a book called The Daily Pressfield. And my girlfriend and partner, Diana, designed this whole package here.
It's really quite extraordinary.
If I can take it apart. And it comes with this book, The Daily Pressfield, and a bunch of other little goodies here, some cards that of the illustrations in here. That's this by Vic Juhas, a great illustrator who did the illustrations. And it comes with a little sort of a companion journal that you can kind of take notes in as you go along. But the whole concept of this book, The Daily Pressfield, it's like a 365-day thing, right? It starts at day one, goes through a year. And it's really for anybody, speaking of addiction, it's for anybody that an artist, entrepreneur, writer, whatever, who's about to tackle or is tackling already some long-term project, like a book that's going to take a year or 2 years to write and has to do it alone, you know, without any supporting structure, you know, like Shell or like a school or an organization, a corporation or something like that, where you're alone in a room by yourself, facing your demons every day, right? And you've got to keep going. Day 1, day 50, day 350, day 450, and you're going to have all the various crises that are going to happen along the way. The famous, second act horrors. You're in the middle of a thing and you go, why the fuck did I ever even start this thing? So this book is kind of designed, 1 week at a time.
That's awesome.
It's really to hit those points. So that in the middle of this book is like the Act 2 horrors and pages that are about that. So that you could, theoretically set this beside your laptop and in the morning, open it up and do one day, just read one day. And hopefully it would encourage you to keep going through a project. So that's what this book is for. And the 365-day sort of devotional concept, I thought was a real good way to kind of walk somebody through the hell that they're going to go through. Because we're fighting our demons every day and we're alone. And so this is to try to help anybody that's in that position.
Steven, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. Thank you for not quitting and writing and inspiring so many people. And I love you and I appreciate you. And thank you for making me become a better man.
Hey, thank you, Sean, for having me here.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you're doing. People can't see. We should turn the camera around and show what's here. This great facility that takes people in that are really in desperate shape. And you've helped so many people. I love you too, brother.
We'll keep it going.
It's always great to see you in the morning. And thanks for having me. I hope what we've talked about today helps.
I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Few people in ways, whatever.
Good. Thank you, bro.
Thanks for having me.
The Seano Show is a production of iHeart Podcasts, hosted by me, Seano McFarland, produced by Pod People and 28th Ave. Our lead producer is Keith Kornelek. Our executive producer is Lindsay Hoffman. Marketing lead is Ashley Weaver. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.